Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Leading from Home webinar. We're really thrilled to have you with us and to talk about this exciting new initiative at Homegrown. I am going to introduce our webinar leaders today and then talk a little bit about the agenda. So first, I'm Natalie Renew. I'm the director of Homegrown, and today I am joined by my colleagues Karen Tylick, the program manager at Homegrown, and Jennifer Newbold, the community engagement coordinator at Homegrown. We're so thrilled to have Jen on the team, and she is going to be supporting translating today's event in Spanish. So we'll be, translating alongside Karen and I. And then we are so thrilled to have Gladys Jones, the amazing family childcare provider and provider leader from New York City, joining us today. We're thrilled to have all of you. If you want to share your name and where you're joining us from in the chat, that would be great. And I'm going to turn it over to Jen to welcome you as well.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Jennifer, soy la nueva coordinadora aquí en Homegrown y vamos a estar presentando sobre la iniciativa que estamos haciendo aquí, la nueva iniciativa. Entonces está aquí Karen Tylick, que es el program manager aquí, la manager del programa, Natalie Renew, quien es la directora de Homegrown, y Gladys Jones, que es la dueña de Gaga Daycare y también la fundadora de ECE on the Move.
Thanks, Jen. We're excited to have all of you with us today, and we would love to learn about who you are and what role you currently serve. So we have a really quick poll. If you want to share with us, your role and background, we'd love to know.
Estamos muy contentas que todos están aquí con nosotros y tenemos una encuesta aquí que puedes ver en su pantalla. Y por favor, si puedes seleccionar cuál de esto en la lista que eres, para que podamos tener en cuenta qué posiciones tienes.
Great. So we're excited to see that most of you joining us today are home-based providers, and that is perfect because this is an opportunity for home-based childcare providers and provider leaders. So we're thrilled to have you with us today.
Estamos muy contentas de ver que la mayoría de ustedes son proveedores de cuidado infantil basado en el hogar y esta es una oportunidad para ustedes. Entonces estamos muy contentas de verles todos.
I'm going to next share very briefly our agenda for today's discussion, and then we will dive right in. So I'm just going to share a little bit of background on the work of Homegrown and how this initiative came to be. Then we're going to spend a little bit of time with Gladys sharing her experience as a provider leader. And then we will really dig into the nuts and bolts of the Leading from Home initiative and the details of the initiative. We will then discuss what support is available to you as you consider applying for this opportunity, and we'll have plenty of time for your questions during this discussion.
Entonces vamos a empezar con la agenda y vamos a hacer la introducción sobre qué es esta iniciativa. También vamos a tener Gladys Jones, quien va a hablar sobre su organización. Y también vamos a hablar de Guiando desde el Hogar, que es el nombre de esta nueva iniciativa, y también qué ayudas podemos tener para ustedes.
Great. So I'm just going to share a little bit of background and sort of how we came to develop this funding opportunity. For those of you that do not know, Homegrown is a national collaborative. We are a group of member funders, and the list of our funders is here on the page. And this group came together with a mission around improving the quality of and access to home-based childcare. And our mission is inclusive of both licensed family childcare as well as family-friended neighbor caregivers.
Homegrown es un colaborativo nacional de financiadores dedicados a mejorando la calidad y acceso al cuidado infantil basado en el hogar. Esto incluye el cuidado de niños, familiar, proveedores y también a cuidadores de familia, amigos y vecinos. Y también aquí abajo tienes el lista de los fundadores de nuestra organización.
So as we considered developing this initiative, and as we have been working with providers over the past year and a half, we really identified a kind of key set of factors and issues in the context that led us to the development of this initiative. Namely, that home-based providers are both under-resourced and underappreciated for the incredibly important work that they do in communities to support children, families, and communities at large. And that often home-based providers are not included in the design of policies and services and in driving key decisions at the policy level. And we also found that as we spent time with providers like Gladys, I see Chris Nelson just joined us in who's another provider that we spend a lot of time with. We really found that most often providers and caregivers were supporting each other in accessing resources or information, and really recognized that there was a very rich, informal set of relationships and supports that providers were lending to one another.
El cuidado infantil basado en el hogar tenemos 3 puntos aquí. Primeramente, carece de recursos y no es apreciado. Y todos nosotros sabemos que esto es una industria que no hay mucha ayuda. Entonces, el segundo punto se dice, no se les toma en cuenta a la hora de hacer decisiones y en la política. Y también proveedores y cuidadores se ayudan entre ellos mismos para identificar recursos, validar información y también compartir apoyo emocional y profesional.
Great. And I'm going to just make a quick announcement that I forgot to do earlier, because I always forget the things I'm supposed to say, which is we would love for you to share your questions with us in the Q&A throughout the discussion. We'll have plenty of time to get to your questions, and ask that you just put them in the Q&A section so that we can make sure that all of your questions get answered during today's discussion.
Sí, en el fin de del programa vamos a tener preguntas y respuestas. Si por favor puedes dejar sus preguntas hasta el final de esa presentación para que podamos contestar todos.
Great. So as we sort of considered these issues that I just laid out, we really designed leading from home as an opportunity to support provider leaders, folks who had already sort of begun bringing together their peers and supporting their peers to grow and to empower the groups and networks that they were creating on behalf of each other and the larger field of home-based childcare. So our goal is really to support providers and their leadership and informal networks through this initiative. And as a part of this, we want to support providers and caregivers in really having a seat at the table and a voice in the conversation, and recognize that there are lots of different ways to do that, and that Homegrown wants to be a partner to provider leaders as they navigate that in their local community.
Guiando desde el hogar fue creado por 2 cosas, y primeramente es apoyar a los líderes proveedores para que ellos ayuden a crecer a sus grupos y redes para crear cambios positivos por el cuidado infantil basado en el hogar, que nosotros decimos HBCC. Y también a asistir a proveedores y cuidadores para que puedan tener una voz en la conversación.
Great. So now that I've shared a little bit about the goals of the initiative, we will have more time to talk about the details and the specifics of the program, but I'd really like to turn it over to Gladys Jones, who is a provider and a leader of other providers, as well as a really trusted advisor to Homegrown, to share a little bit about her experience and and the work that she's been doing to pull together her peers and other members and building their power and raising their voice in their community locally and nationally. So thank you so much, Gladys, for joining us for this conversation and for sharing your experience.
Gladys,
it looks like Gladys may.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Hello, everyone. My name is Gladys Jones, and I know a lot of people on this I see in the chat. And that's because I try to go everywhere that I can to meet other providers and share, things of like minds. So let me start by saying I've been doing this for 17 years. And within 17 years, ever since I started this, I knew that something wasn't right. And what that right was that I never felt that I've been my own self-employed person. I never felt that I'm really the boss, because we've had so many things from even 17 years back that was not correct. So I've always tried to change my course. And what I did find is that there wasn't a lot of places that people wanted to listen to us, not even our mandating agencies. So I had to do something about that. So before the pandemic, I got together through WhatsApp platform, and what essentially it is about 600 of us from New York City, oppressed women, got together, and we decided to make a change. I made friends in certain places, like some other people that I knew congressmen and so on. And in order for us to advocate for ourselves, we need to have power. And the power comes with you organizing together, getting together, because
I think we lost Gladys, unfortunately.
I think so too, but I can go ahead and do a brief overview in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking participants. Gladys Jones, ella es el dueña de Gaga Daycare que está en Staten Island, en Nueva York. Y ella es una privadora licenciada por 17 años. Y también ella es la fundadora de Easy on the Move, que es la organización que ella creó en el 2018, perdón, y tiene más de 600 miembros. Y la meta de su organización es cambiar el sector para que el cuidado infantil en el hogar sea reconocido como la primera parte de la educación para los niños.
Thanks, Jen. I'm sorry that we lost Gladys, because she's just such an inspiring leader. And really, as we were thinking about designing this program, we were talking to lots of providers, including Gladys, around sort of the work that was already underway in communities to bring providers together to identify needs for change and to really get to the table and support positive change in the communities. And I think, as Gladys was beginning to allude to, the experiences during COVID really brought the urgency and the need to ensure that this work happens, certainly from our perspective at Homegrown.
Entonces, una de las cosas que Gladys estaba hablando fue lo que ellos hicieron durante la pandemia y cómo ellos podían acercarse unos a otros para ayudar y apoyar a unos a otros.
Sorry, folks. As you see, Wi-Fi is not very stable. I need more money. We need money. But anyway, as I was saying, we got together and we formed ECE on the Move, and we're providers helping providers. And I feel empowered to change my own course. I want to be recognized as a business person. I want to be respected. And what I find every time I go to any spaces that have providers, everyone, no matter what state you're in, that's what most people require and want. So leadership, I'm not anything special other than I want to make a change, the years that is left in my industry. And before I go, I always tell Natalie this. I would like to see this industry to be grounded, to be not only respected, but be an industry that everyone, that we don't have to be, every time something happens, that we're wiped out. But an industry that's almost like Social Security, like Medicare. We shouldn't have to explain why childcare is necessary. And so that's essentially it. Anything else, folks?
Thank you so much, Gladys. And that's very much not true, because Gladys is really a very special woman, and we are so appreciative of you lending your time and your expertise, to our effort here and to providers beyond just New York. Thank you, Gladys. Great. So we're now going to turn and really get into some of the nuts and bolts of the program and talk about the process, the who, the what, and the when, so that you have everything you need to review the application and consider if it's a good fit for you, and to access support as you work through the application.
Ahora vamos a hablar sobre la iniciativa Guiando desde el Hogar, quién, qué y cuándo, y también vamos a explicar los detalles sobre esa iniciativa.
And I'm going to turn it over to Karen and Jen to walk us through this section.
Great. And just a reminder, if you've just joined us, we welcome you to put your questions in the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of today's session, and we want to make sure we answer all of your questions.
Y si tienes algunas preguntas, por favor lo escribe en el Q&A porción que está aquí en Zoom, y vamos a dar las respuestas cuando terminamos con esa presentación.
Thanks. Okay, so starting with the who. So we are looking for home-based childcare providers. So active providers who also lead informal or grassroots networks of groups of their peers. We are hoping to include both licensed family childcare providers and license exempt family, friend, and neighbors. So we hope that you will consider applying regardless of whether you are an FCC provider or an FFN provider. We want to include you in this work and ensure that your voices are represented. We're looking for providers who have 10 or more additional providers and or parents in their network and are interested in growing that network, and who also have 5 to 10 hours per month to commit to the work of leading from home. As Natalie mentioned, we know that home-based childcare providers already work long hours. We know that you're very pressed for time, and that some providers may not have that bandwidth to be able to give to an initiative like this. But we're hoping that the folks that do apply to do this work have some bandwidth so that they can really dig into the material and engage in this work with us. And then lastly, we're interested in networks and leaders that have a particular interest in advocacy and policy and having a seat at the table, as we've been talking about today, and are interested in supporting other providers, caregivers, and families in having their voices represented.
Estamos buscando a proveedores quien dirige un red o grupo informal de proveedores y cuidadores, y también puede ser proveedores de cuidado infantil certificados o proveedores y cuidadores de la categoría familia, amigo y vecina, FNN, exentos de la certificación o no regulados. Tienen 10 o más proveedores y padres en su red, y también que tenga 5 a 10 horas al mes para comprometer a la iniciativa de Guiando desde el Hogar. Y también estamos buscando a personas interesadas en advocacia y cambio de política para soportar a proveedores y cuidadores y familias.
Thank you. So a bit about the what of the initiative. So Leading from Home is it planned as a 1-year-long initiative. So this would be a commitment to ongoing work with Homegrown. As part of that, Homegrown will provide a monthly stipend to the selected leaders in the amount of $1,000 and additional funds to support network building activities. So For example, perhaps your network needs additional Zoom accounts to accommodate online meetings at this time, or perhaps you need supplies for letter writing campaigns. Homegrown can provide some additional funding for those activities. We'll also be connecting you to technical assistance that is funded by Homegrown with policy experts and experts in strategic communications to support your work and support your goals.
En Guiando desde el Hogar es una iniciativa de un año y Homegrown ofrecerá remuneraciones mensuales a líderes seleccionados en la cantidad de $1,000 cada mes, fondos adicionales para apoyar actividades de la red como tecnología, suministros, y también ofrecemos asistencia gratuita para satisfacer las necesidades en cuanto a la estrategia políticas y las comunicaciones estratégicas.
Great. And then as part of the initiative, what we're looking for provider leaders to do is to continue to convene your provider and caregiver network. We're asking that you meet with your folks, whether it be online or when it's safe in person, at least monthly, that you identify your goals for your group or your network and help us think through what are the needed supports to achieve those goals. We would ask that you participate in that technical assistance with policy and communications experts and participate in a community of practice of other provider leaders. And we're really excited about this opportunity to be able to convene provider leaders from across the country to be able to share their stories and learn from one another. And that you would then, with the knowledge and the skills that you gain from the wisdom of this group, be able to prepare and train your network members to participate in policy action towards those goals that you set for your network and your group. And that you work to expand your network and build a contact list so that we can continue to grow this movement in support of home-based childcare.
Los proveedores y cuidadores líderes van a convocar redes de proveedores y cuidadores al menos una vez al mes. También van a identificar sus metas y apoyo necesario. Y también participar en Homegrown's asistencia técnica. También participar en una comunidad de práctica de otros líderes proveedores. Y entrenar y preparar a los miembros de su red para participar en la acción política. Y expandir su red y construir una lista de contacto.
Okay, and then the when. So applications will be open until March 19th. So you have until the end of the day on March 19th to submit an application. We do have materials available in both English and Spanish on our website, and we can drop the link to that in the chat. The applications themselves are available in English and Spanish as well. And the process is that we will review all applications that are received. We'll select a small number of finalists that will be invited for interviews in late March and early April, and we hope to announce selections in late April.
Pues tienes hasta el 19 de marzo al fin de día para mandar su solicitud, y también esta aplicación es disponible en inglés o español en nuestro sitio de web de Homegrown. Las finalistas serán invitados a entrevistas a finales de marzo y en el principio de abril. Y vamos a anunciar los seleccionados el fin de abril.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with that, we really want to open things up for question and answer to make sure that you have all of your questions answered today. First, I am going to drop a link to the webpage just to make sure that everyone has that and the application is linked from that webpage. And then we have a couple of questions that have already come in that we can address. And we encourage you, if you do have questions for us, please put it in that Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a little conversation bubble. That really helps us to track your questions and ensure that they aren't lost in the chat box. So we have a, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Ok, y ahora vamos a empezar con una sobre pregunta y respuesta. Entonces, si puedes poner sus preguntas aquí en el Q&A, botón aquí abajo en Zoom, en la pantalla, para que podamos contestar sus preguntas. Y también incluimos la registración, la aplicación para esta iniciativa. Entonces, por favor, si tienes alguna pregunta, déjanos saber.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So we do have a question about how many providers will be selected for the program. It will be a small group. So we're currently looking for between 10 and 15 providers to be part of this Leading from Home initiative. So there's not a set number per state. We are looking for geographic diversity and diversity within the provider group. But we will only be able to select up to 15 providers for this cohort.
Y la primera pregunta fue cuántos proveedores van a ser seleccionados para esta iniciativa. Y vamos a seleccionar entre 10 a 15 personas y no tiene que ser de un estado, puede ser de todo el país. Entonces estamos buscando a cuántas personas en todo los Estados Unidos.
Great. We have a question. Will Homegrown have a community platform for all different applicants to connect and share resources? That is a great question, a great suggestion. We are currently looking into the best fit to encourage more connection across providers. So we are looking into developing something along those lines. We're figuring out which platform is the best fit for that to really foster those types of discussions. But we are hoping to have something along those lines available for you in the near future.
Y la pregunta fue que si vamos a tener una aplicación para que todos podamos poner como links y hablar juntos. Y ahorita estamos buscando un programa que podemos usar o una app, pero ahorita estamos haciendo eso y cuando tenemos más información sobre la iniciativa podemos decirles más.
Great. We have a question. Do we have to currently have an active group to participate? What if we want to start a group? So anyone is welcome to apply. We will be giving priority to folks who currently have a network of at least 10 providers and or parents that they're looking to grow and have some experience with thus far. But anyone is able to apply, but when we are making our selections, we will be giving priority to those folks that have some experience and a group of 10 or more providers.
Y esa pregunta fue si la persona tiene que tener un grupo ahorita o puede empezar un grupo. Entonces estamos dando prioridad a las personas que ahorita tienen un grupo, pero sí queremos que todo el mundo se aplican y queremos ver todas las aplicaciones si usted no tiene un grupo o si lo tienes, por favor, aplican.
Another question, is the stipend specifically for the applicant or leader, or can they share with their colleagues that assist? So you can definitely share the stipend. So the stipend will be made to one leader or a small group of leaders per network, but how you decide to divide the stipend amongst yourselves, whether it's a single leader, whether it's two co-leaders, perhaps, we are open to that possibility as well.
La pregunta fue si pueden compartir las remuneraciones mensuales y ese dinero es de ustedes, entonces usted puede hacer lo que quiere con ese dinero, es para ustedes. Y entonces si quieres compartirlo con las personas, con otros proveedores que usted trabaja con, puedes hacer eso también.
Great. Jen, we have a couple of questions in Spanish that I would ask you to read and translate for us. So it looks like we have a question from Evelyn and also a question from Alicia.
So Evelyn asks, ¿se necesita un seguro social? So she's asking, do you need a social security?
I'm going to have to ask Natalie if we have the answer to that or if that's something we'll need to get back to you on.
I think that we can get back to you, but we may be able to use a TIN or that other form, but I would encourage you to apply and we can certainly, work through detail regarding payment if you're selected and you do not have a social security number.
Entonces, Evelyn, nosotros vamos a ver si podemos hacer eso, pero vamos a ver si tenemos un otro método que podemos hacer, pero por favor aplica y podemos estar en contacto para contestar cualquier pregunta que tienes.
Thanks, Jen. And
Ujú.
we have a question from Alicia.
¿Puede darnos un ejemplo específico de lo que un líder haría? She's asking, can you give a specific example of what a leader would do?
Great question. So the leader, among other things, would be the convener of the group. The leader would, and there are lots of different models of leadership. So, co-leadership structures, but the leader would likely be the person who's convening your network of providers, who's possibly facilitating that group, who's responsible for organizing, perhaps doing a lot of the logistics for the group, and helping the group in setting its goals, and determining the direction that the group wants to go, along with the other members, of course. Leadership can take lots of different forms. Natalie, I'd like to invite you to join in on your vision for what leadership could look like within the networks.
Yeah, I would just add that, we really don't want to prescribe what this looks like. We want individual groups in their communities to be, determining need and making decisions around how to move their groups forward. So part of what our hope is to support groups that want to make change in their community and to help them strategize on what that looks like and gather resources to do that. And so, at a minimum, it's the things that we've laid out: a monthly meeting, staying in contact with Homegrown, joining our meetings, and sharing, with the peer group. But really beyond that, we think you know best what your community needs, and we want to support you in realizing those goals. And I'll maybe let Jen jump in here, but I'm sure Gladys may have, things that she can share about her experience and what she does every day, as well. But maybe, Jen, you want to do a little translating before we let Gladys jump in.
Of course. Entonces, Alicia, el líder va a ser la persona guiando su red de proveedores. Y eso incluye ayudando al grupo a hacer metas y ayudar a los otros miembros de su red. Y también nosotros como organización queremos apoyar a los grupos a hacer esto y para ayudar a su comunidad. Entonces, usted sabe lo que su comunidad necesita, entonces usted haga lo que usted cree que es prioridad para ayudar a su comunidad.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gladys may need to be unmuted. There we go.
My computer is very delicate. I can't be muting like that. It goes off. I think that everyone has a different need, but the main core of our focus as leaders would be to empower ourselves to be strong and to seek out, among others, leadership, because you need help. So what I do, this is me, what I do, because our sector in New York City needs a lot of help. We just need a lot of help, as far as grievances and things like that. So I ensure that we get the up-to-date information, the latest regulations. I seek things to rise us, like getting places where we could get referrals for children. I don't wait for anyone anymore. We do it. So I need help, and I seek the people that are strong, and we have committees and so on. And I think that's probably the recipe for most folks that are going to be doing some type of networking, to seek what is needed in their community, what it is that you need, and of course, empowering ourselves.
Thank you, Gladys. It's really helpful. Go ahead, Jen.
Y Alicia, para contestar su pregunta, como Gladys dijo, ella quiere buscar recursos y pedir ayuda cuando lo necesitas y ver que su comunidad necesita. Primeramente, eso es lo más importante.
Great. Thank you very much. We have a question about membership in a union and whether that is disqualifying. That is not disqualifying. We encourage you to apply regardless. We have some questions about the 5 to 10 hour commitment per month and what that entails. So some of that would be work with Homegrown. So we do intend to convene that community of practice of selected leaders approximately monthly. So that would be about 1 hour per month that you would be participating in the community of practice. We also envision having technical assistance from those policy and communications experts as part of that 5 to 10 hours per month. And then some of that time is the time with your network, where you are working in partnership with your network, convening them, doing the work behind the scenes that it takes to get momentum going with your network. So part of that 5 to 10 hours is with Homegrown, and part of that is the time that you would normally be spending with your network.
Y la pregunta fue, ¿qué tenemos que hacer durante esos 5 a 10 horas cada mes? Entonces, esto es parte de trabajo que vas a hacer con Homegrown. Entonces, una vez al mes vamos a reunir para hacer una comunidad de práctica. Y eso es 1 hora cada mes. Pero el resto del tiempo puede ser en tal vez una reunión con la asistencia técnica que queremos hacer también. Y con la ayuda o las cosas que vas a hacer con su propia comunidad.
Great, thank you.
Karen, I'd like to jump in here with a couple of questions that maybe I'll join together. There's a few different questions around sort of collaborating with nonprofits or applying as nonprofits. And so I wanted to just kind of address a couple of things, which is that nonprofits may apply for this opportunity. As you know, we mentioned, priority will be given to provider leaders, and it's really the intention of this initiative to support provider leaders. Our hope and our expectation is that many providers will have relationships with nonprofits and advocacy organizations in their communities. And as a part of our support, we are prepared to help make those connections and those, connect those dots. So, we encourage providers, whether they're connected or not with nonprofits, to apply, but also, as a part of building a plan and thinking about what resources and supports there are in your community, are likely to be making connections and building relationships with those types of organizations.
Una de las preguntas fue si las organizaciones pueden participar en esta iniciativa. Y sí pueden aplicar, pero nosotros estamos dando prioridad a los proveedores y cuidadores de niños. Y esa es todavía podría aplicar y queremos que todos aplican, pero vamos a dar prioridad a los cuidadores.
Thank you. Jen, we have a few more questions in Spanish. Looks like we have one from Maria.
Okay. Buenas tardes, soy de Hartford, represento un grupo de 45 so she is asking if her group would qualify. She has a community of 45 providers.
Yes, absolutely.
Sí, María, absolutamente. Sí.
Great. And I believe we have another question from Rosa.
Buenas tardes a todos. ¿Tienen ustedes contemplado el fortalecimiento profesional o liderazgo de las personas seleccionadas? She's asking if we have completed the list of selected people or participants, I should say.
We have not. So we are accepting applications until next Friday, March 19th.
Y Rosa, todavía tienes tiempo, puedes aplicar para esta iniciativa hasta el 19 de marzo. Entonces, todavía tienes tiempo para aplicar.
Great.
Sorry, Karen. I was going to say there's a couple of questions around what the length of engagement of the program is and how long this opportunity is available. And so at this point, this would provide 1 year of funding and support. And, it's our hope to continue beyond that, but we need to really learn in the first year if this is an appropriate role for homegrown, and to see if, we can get the groups up and going. So, our hope is that this would continue longer term, but this first year really is a learning year to see some, to assess feasibility and, acceptability of the program.
Una de las preguntas que recibimos fue por cuánto es esta oportunidad o ese proyecto. Y ahorita es por un año, pero ojalá que se dure más, pero ahorita queremos ver si ese es apropiado para homegrown.
Thanks. We have a question. If we're part of other groups, will we be able to reach across groups to bring people into our network? Absolutely. We hope so. We would love to see collaboration across networks, really leveraging, the power of these different networks to advocate for home-based childcare providers and make change.
Una de las preguntas fue si estamos parte de otros grupos, podemos trabajar con otros, y absolutamente eso es lo que queremos ver, es ver que están participando con todo el mundo y con otros proveedores.
Thank you. Jen, looks like we have a question from Alicia.
Sí, el ingreso que se recibe tiene que declararse en los impuestos. She's asking if the stipend, she has to declare it in taxes.
Yes. Yes.
Sí, vas a tener que hacer eso, Alicia.
Okay. Okay. We have some folks asking about the types of supports that would be available. We'd love some help building a plan to get outreach to partnerships. That is certainly part of the process, and part of the initiative of Leading from Home is, how do we grow our influence? How do we advocate for home-based childcare? So that will certainly be part of the work. As Natalie has mentioned, we do see this as a learning opportunity. We as Homegrown expect to learn a lot from this process. And so if there are lessons learned and information that's transferable to other contexts, we will certainly be sharing out to everyone, and hope to be able to offer additional supports beyond the 10 to 15 provider leaders that are chosen for this particular initiative.
Sí, una de las preguntas fue qué tipo de apoyo van a recibir, y que los proveedores quieren ayuda para hacer un plan. Entonces nosotros sí queremos trabajar juntos para hacer esto, y como dijimos antes, ese es un año que vamos a ver cómo salga todo. Entonces, por favor, aplican para que podamos hacer todo esto juntos.
Great, thank you. There's another question about geography. How many counties will the leaders be supporting? There's no set requirement regarding the number of counties or the geographic area. We're really looking for a diverse representation of geographies. And so there's no set requirement regarding the number of counties.
Bueno, pregunta de cuántas ciudades o áreas de estado pueden estar en cuenta, pero nosotros no tenemos ningún cuenta de cuántos necesitan. Puedes tener un grupo grande que va sobre todo el estado, o tener un grupo pequeño, pero por favor aplican para que podamos hablar más sobre ese tema.
Great. And just to reiterate, because I've seen the question a couple of times, that we're looking for 10 to 15 provider leaders for this initiative.
Sí, y hay algunas preguntas sobre cuántas personas, y estamos buscando a 10 a 15 personas para esta iniciativa.
Great.
I think, Karen, there's some confusion about the 10, so maybe we can clarify that each applicant that applies must have an informal group of about 10 providers or parents that they are regularly engaging with in their local communities. So each network should have about 10 providers in it. But then from the homegrown perspective, we will be selecting 10 to 15 provider-led networks to participate in this initiative. So I think that may have caused some confusion because we've used that number 10 in two ways. So our hope is that when you apply, you are currently working with 10 or more providers or families and bringing them together regularly and supporting them. And then homegrown will select 10 to 15 communities to support with this investment and community provider leaders to support.
Entonces estamos buscando que las líderes que sí aplican, que tienen una red de 10 o más proveedores y familias en su comunidad que están trabajando con. Entonces, si usted ya tiene una comunidad en lo que estás trabajando, que tiene 10 o más personas, sí puedes aplicar por esta iniciativa.
And there's a question here from Latanya that she is convening a group that includes both centers and home-based providers, and whether that group could participate. And that's fine, I think, as long as there are 10 home-based providers and that you are a leader of that group and that in your role you're leading that group, that is fine. We recognize that in different communities there are different constituents and allies for home-based providers. And again, that you know best what works best in your community in terms of elevating the needs of providers, home-based providers.
Y hay una pregunta que dice que tiene una comunidad de lugares que cuidan a los niños, pero también a proveedores. Entonces, lo que queremos clarificar es que tenemos 10, que tienes 10 proveedores en su comunidad que sí cuidan a niños que son home child-based providers.
We have a question about the selection process and providers who are currently connected to formal networks and receiving support versus those that are not. What I would say is we encourage all of you to apply. We really are trying to support home-based childcare providers who are convening informal grassroots networks of groups that are looking to expand their reach and their influence, to advocate and to step into policy work. But that doesn't mean that providers who are connected to more formal structures are excluded. So we welcome everyone to apply.
Estamos buscando a proveedores que sí trabajan desde la casa con niños, pero también si se trabaja con un lugar o como una organización, sí, por favor, aplican. Queremos que todos apliquen para esa iniciativa.
Great. Jen, it looks like we have a question from Maria.
Yes, Maria is asking if the orientations will be in Spanish.
Yes, great question, Maria. So the support, including the initial convening, the community of practice, and the technical assistance will be made available in both English and Spanish.
Y sí, María, la comunidad de práctica, las reuniones y también los meetings que vamos a tener juntas, sí van a estar disponibles en español y igual en inglés.
Great. And for those who have asked, the session is being recorded and we will share the recording. We will email it out to everyone who registered for today's session.
Yeah, and I'm going to suggest that we talk a little bit about how you can get support during completing the application. I know that folks have a lot of questions and want to assure you that we have a lot of support to help you through the process and are happy to answer your individual questions and address any specific issues you may be facing in completing the application. So I'll turn it back over to Karen.
Great. So yes, we want to provide as much support as possible and make sure that all of your questions are answered. So in addition to today's webinar, we will also be offering office hours. We have 2 sessions planned. One is tomorrow evening, Wednesday, March 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern. And the other is Thursday, March 11th at 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. And we will be available to answer questions in both English and Spanish. And the link to register for those office hours, it's on our website, and I've also put it in the chat.
Y si tienes algunas preguntas o necesitas ayuda en la aplicación, por favor déjanos saber porque tenemos algunas horas de oficina. Entonces el miércoles, el 10 de marzo, tenemos una hora que podemos hablar con usted, que es a las 6 a las 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Y también el marzo 11, que es jueves, a las 2 p.m. a las 3. Entonces, si tienes alguna pregunta, por favor, mándanos un email ahí en ese email que está ahí en Zoom y podemos ayudarte con cualquier cosa.
Great. Okay. I believe, Jen, have we answered Martha's question?
Let me check mi pregunta de leaders. She's asking if the leader, if they have to have a group of 10 providers that or with children that they're currently watching. So I'm trying to understand the question. Do they have to have 10 providers in their group? I think that's what she's asking.
Natalie, do you want to answer?
Yeah, it looks like Claudia had some similar questions as well. So I'd like to just clarify that we are asking providers to participate in their role as a leader among their peers of providers. So this really has nothing to do with the number of children that you're caring for. You should always be following the local requirements around the numbers of kids that you're caring for. And this is really about how many other providers are you engaging with and supporting around thinking collectively around the needs of home-based providers. So when we're talking about having a network of approximately 10 providers, we're really thinking about, other providers that you regularly meet with. Gladys shared that she has a WhatsApp chat group with her providers, that they're talking about all different kinds of things, right? Who's got the cleaning supplies? What Costco's got supplies on the shelves, right? What's going on with the city health department lead certifications, right? That group of providers that you're sharing resources with, that you're talking about your needs with, that's the group of 10 that we're thinking about. And, trust that you are taking care of kids and following the local requirements in your day-to-day responsibilities as a family childcare, home-based childcare provider. And that's somewhat separate from, the work that we're hoping to do with you around bringing providers together and advancing the needs of providers.
Entonces, Marta, lo que estamos buscando es que sea un líder que tienen 10 otros líderes o proveedores en su comunidad que estás hablando regularmente. Puede ser por WhatsApp o otras aplicaciones, pero lo que sí estamos buscando es que tienes como 10 otros proveedores en su comunidad que estás trabajando.
And I do see one question about what if I've already submitted an application. If you would like to modify any of your responses that you have submitted, feel free to reach out to us. You can email the address here that's on your screen. And what we can do is remove your first application so that you can submit a fresh application given the information that we've shared today. So please just reach out to us to let us know, and then you can resubmit.
Y recibimos una pregunta si pueden mandar la aplicación otra vez o cambiar algo. Y claro que sí, por favor, mándanos un email dejándonos saber para que usted pueda mandar su aplicación otra vez.
I'm going to suggest that we take one last question before we wrap it up. And Oscar asks in the Q&A, what are the selection criteria we'll be using to determine who is awarded or included? And so we have a two-step process that we will be using. One is to review applications based on their alignment with the goals of the program and the criteria. And then we will invite a group of providers for an interview that we will include some of our provider leader and advisors in, and we'll use those interviews to make the final selection. So really the criteria have been laid out here today, just in terms of the eligibility criteria. And then really want to hear from provider leaders, their goals and their hopes for how this work can help them advance their plans within their community. And we'll make selections based on applications and provider leaders who meet the criteria and can articulate a vision for how we can support them in reaching those goals. And we will rely on our provider leaders and advisors for homegrown to help us make those decisions. Sorry, Jen.
Oh, it's okay, it's okay. Una de las preguntas fue, ¿qué criteria vamos a usar para seleccionar a los líderes? Y nosotros vamos a seleccionar a personas que en metas son con lo que estamos haciendo con ese proyecto. Y también al fin de mes en abril vamos a seleccionar a las personas que creemos que son, que pueden hacer esta iniciativa y que quieren hacer esto también. Entonces, van a recibir más información sobre esto.
Great. So that is all we have for you today. Again, we are really prepared to help answer any of your questions. Join us for office hours, shoot us an email, let us know what we can help you with through the process of applying. We really hope that if this is a good fit for you, that you will apply and are excited at the opportunity to work with many of you. I want to say a big thank you to Karen and Jen for pulling this event together today, and just a huge heartfelt thank you for Gladys for joining us today and sharing your experience and really being an inspiration to all of us. So thank you all so much for spending this time with us this afternoon. And we look forward to hearing from you if you have questions. And we really look forward to reading your applications.
Thank you, everyone.
Gracias a todos.